What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Book Binge on the King Crusoe YouTube channel. And happy 4th of July on the day that this episode debuts. I'm having a really great time. I hope all of you guys are as well. But let's talk about my monthly reading wrap-up and TBR like I do on the first Monday of every month. Now, I did do a little mid-year update at the end of June. I believe it was released on June 24th. Where I talked about something that happened to me in June, being that I got COVID and was really sick for a few days, and it kind of put me into what I called a productivity slump. So I bring this up now because part of that productivity slump was a reading slump, but it wasn't just limited to reading, like the name suggests, or the name that I gave it suggests, because it was everything. I didn't do any editing, didn't do any writing, didn't do any reading, barely did any of the work that I was supposed to at my actual IRL job. I did basically what I needed to and then did nothing else. It was just kind of a month for sure. Because, like I said, I was sick, but this slump kind of lasted for 2.5 weeks, even after I had already recovered. So for most of June, I got basically nothing done. As a result, when we are coming to this section now, talking about what I read in June, it's going to be a little bit barren because, yeah, some plans certainly changed as a result of getting nothing done. So, firstly, I read Song of Susanna by Stephen King, being book 6 in the Dark Tower series. I have to agree with everybody who warned me that this would be a weird book, because in several places it got rather weird. Didn't dislike it, but at this point in time, I've got to say it's easily my least favorite in the series for several reasons, all of which I outline in a review that I have actually already recorded for the book that should be coming out sometime in September. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking about the Dark Tower in reviews over the next couple months. One episode this month, that being next week on the Wastelands, but all of the rest of the reviews will be coming out in August and September. This was the only complete book that I actually read in June. I started it on the 1st of the month, but I didn't actually finish it until, I want to say, the 22nd or 23rd. Even though it's short, it took me absolutely forever. And beyond that, I actually didn't get to read much of anything else. I planned to be able to start reading Count of Monte Cristo and spend a month on that, reading it through the middle of July or something like that, and then moving on to the next read that I had for next month. Problem was that because of this slump, I am scrapping Count of Monte Cristo, at least for now. I'm not going to be reading it this summer, and most likely, like almost guaranteed, won't be reading it at any point this year, which greatly saddens me because I was so excited to get around to it, but I just don't have the time to justify trying to fit it in, especially with all the other big stuff that I'm going to be reading over the rest of this year. But even though I didn't get to read Count of Monte Cristo, I did finally get to finish reading Volume 3 of War and Peace. Now, I still have a little bit of this to go, about 320 pages left, right? I think that's right. Yeah, about 320 pages remaining in War and Peace, that being Volume 4 and the epilogue. I did want to read all of Volume 3 in May, but didn't get to do that, and ended up having to push the rest of it into June. I'm lucky that I was able to do so as a result of not being able to read for a couple weeks. But I gotta say, part 3 of Volume 3 was one of my favorite sections of the entire book so far, so I am very excited to be able to continue. Now, this is normally where I would go into what was my favorite read of the month, but I kind of have to default to Song of Susanna since it was the only complete read that I did in June. But at the same time, there was enough problems with this that I'm like, do I really want this to be my favorite read of the month? So I'm kind of actually going to cheat and say that part 3 of Volume 3 of War and Peace was my favorite read of the month. I very much enjoyed it. I figured it would take me 4 or 5 days to be able to get through. I read it in about 2 days. So hopefully that bodes well and means that I'll be able to finish this book a lot quicker than I'm anticipating. And now that we've gone through that, what do I plan to read in July? Now, Assuming all goes well, I hope for this month to be a lot more productive, but I'm hedging my bets and actually kind of planning out like the for sure schedule for not doing very much. I just kind of want to make sure that I'm not pressuring myself to do more than I feel like I'm capable of at any point in time, at least not a significant amount more than that, because I've been challenging myself every month of the year so far. After June, I'm like, I need to take a step back. If I'm really not in the mood for reading, I'm not going to force myself to do it this time around. But first thing that I plan to read in July is The Dark Tower, the ultimate finale of the series. A big chunky book, the longest in the series by something like 20,000 words or more than that. So this will take me a little bit of time to do. Although if it reads as fast as either Wizard and Glass or Wolves of the Calla do, I should be perfectly fine. I have, like I said, been planning my month around not reading very much, so I'm actually only have this as like the only really official read of the month. This is the very absolute minimum that I need to get done, but based on the day that I'm recording this, being June 29th, as long as I read one chapter every single day, I can finish this in the amount of time that I need to and be fine. I'm pretty certain that I'll be able to read more than one chapter a day. I think I'll be able to be through with this by the middle of the month, if not earlier, especially if it does go as quick as, say, Wolves of the Calla did, because I read that in a week. So if I can read this in, 2 weeks, that'll be fantastic. Beyond the Dark Tower, I don't have anything else that I'm like, I need to finish this, except for War and Peace. Now, I talked about this a little bit just a minute ago, but I do want to get through the rest of this book. I don't know how fast the remaining 320 pages will go. I know that the second part of the epilogue is pretty difficult for most people to go through just because it's just so much philosophy and Tolstoy just kind of shoving his thoughts down your throat, more or less, but I'm very excited to actually finish this book, and if any of the rest of it goes anywhere near as quick as part 3 of Volume 3 did, I should also be fine. I'm hoping to be able to get through the Dark Tower by the middle of the month or so, even if I'm only able to read like 2 chapters a day or something like that. And then I should be able to spend the rest of the month on this, and that's what I am betting on. However, I do have a little bit more to talk about in this video, because if I am able to finish The Dark Tower and War and Peace in July, and still have a little bit of extra time, I am going to reread The Gunslinger. Now, I read this in January when I started my journey along the Path of the Beam, and I enjoyed this quite a bit, even though I had no clue what was going on. But as I've continued going through the series, and several books, partially Wolves of the Calla, but especially Song of Susanna has made reference to this book, so many more things about it have started to make so much more sense. And every single person that I've talked to who has read through the entire series of The Dark Tower and then reread The Gunslinger after the fact has said that the amount of foreshadowing in it is insane. The amount of appreciation or even love that people show this book upon a reread after finishing the series grows tremendously. So, since I already enjoyed the book quite a bit, when I finish The Dark Tower and War and Peace, if I do still have a few days left in July, I am going to reread this and see if that holds true for me. And even if nothing else, since I was so lost for certain sections of this book when I read it, because I will admit, like most people, I was pretty lost reading this the first time. I want to go back, and now that I really understand this world to the extent that, or not to the greatest extent that I could, but since I know this world just as a result of reading the series and know the characters and know what's going to happen, at least after finishing that last book, I really want to see how this one holds up. And that's pretty much what I read in June and my plans for July. However, I will just add on a little section at the end of this here where I'm going to talk about just a few books that I have kind of as back burner plans, just kind of not necessarily palate cleansers per se, because one of these is definitely not a palate cleanser. If all of the Discord buddies are to be believed. For the rest of the summer and even early fall, these are a few books that I really want to get through, but don't know if I can like actually say I'm going to read this month. So this is like if there's a lot of extra time or if I need a break and need something else to read, I might be able to fit one of these in over the next few months. So let's just talk about those now. Now, the first book in this little section that I'm going to talk about is probably the most hesitant of the ones that I am to include it, that being The Obscene Bird of Night. Everybody in the Discord that's my buddy is reading it or has read it, and they just continue to pester me about it. Just as a result of that pestering, I'm going to say, since I don't actually have set in stone plans anymore to be able to read this year, I'm going to have it on hand and say, hey, if there's a chance over the rest of the year, maybe I'll be able to fit this in. It's a little bit longer with, a little bit thicker than I was thinking it was going to be when I purchased it. I thought it'd be maybe half or 2/3 the size, so that actually makes it a little bit harder to fit in, but we shall see. Like I said, it's on the back burner. No promises regarding this one. These next three, though, are definitely more priority for me. Since they'll be a lot easier to fit in, they'll be a lot easier to read, and they'll be a lot faster to read. These are the ones that I'm actually looking to of, hey, if I need a palate cleanser, if I need something else, if I need a break from the series that I'm reading, like, because I'm going to be doing a read-along of the full Sun Eater series as it exists right now anyway. There may come a time where I'm like, hey, I just want to spend a few days reading a different book. And that's what these are going to serve as. That being the Kane Chronicles trilogy by Rick Riordan. Now, I mentioned in my 5 fantasy series that I want to read in 2023 and 5 more I want to reread. That video will be coming out here in, I believe, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I can't remember. I think it's the last Monday of this month that video comes out. I did mention The Heroes of Olympus being the next Rick Riordan reread that I want to get to in 2023, assuming that I'm able to read this series this year. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. Like I said, because of that productivity slump, things are looking a lot more weird, a lot more iffy in regards to reading schedule, especially since I'm trying not to commit so hard anymore at this point because of all of that. So I'm hoping that over the course of the rest of the summer and the fall, even the winter, but I doubt that that'll happen because I'll be reading Les Mis, I hope to be able to fit these in if I get the chance. They'll be a lot quicker, and since it's only the 3 books, and I know that Rick Riordan goes super quick for me at this point, I'm looking forward to trying to do those. But at last, we come to the end of this video. Be sure to come back next week for a review on The Wastelands, Book 3 of The Dark Tower. Like I said, I'm covering that, and then I'll be covering the rest of The Dark Tower in August and September. Over the rest of this month, I also have a review on Dune as well, and that 5 fantasy series I want to read in 2023 video coming out. So if any of that is anything you want to look out for, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you don't miss any of those videos when they do come out. And of course, as always, check out seasonalproductions.com for all of my that's not the word, for all of my writing and video content all in one place. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back again next week with more Dark Tower.